Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mom Your Own Way. I'm Lily Coco, and today I'm talking to Stacie Larrison, and we're going to talk about when moms and those in motherhood, when you are faced with a chronic illness or a disability, how that doesn't make you any less of a mom. It might give you some challenges, and we're going to talk about that and getting through those. But if you're a mom, and you get through it and you get going. So let's start the conversation. I can't wait to talk to her. I can't wait to dive in and get to know her more as a person. Hi,
Hi
Stacie.
there. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being
hmm
here. I'm excited to get to know you. I'm excited to start the conversation, but let's start at the beginning of who you are. So tell me your story. Tell me how you got here today and what makes you you.
I love that. Thank you. So I'm Stacie Larrison. I am a mom from the Midwest. When I was a kid, I started dealing with some chronic health problems. And as I aged, those began to escalate. By the
Mm.
time I had reached early adulthood, I was dealing with several undiagnosed issues. One of those ended up being lupus. Another was a disorder called pseudotumor cerebri, which affects the brain. You may have heard of hydrocephalus, which is like water on the brain. It's kind of a similar issue. And then I have some other disorders that are offshoots of lupus, which is an autoimmune disease.
Mm.
With autoimmune disease, and in particular with lupus, I have antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, which actually causes small blood clots. It can happen in your blood at any time, but it tends to become really active when you have another illness going on or during pregnancy.
Oof.
So we tried to have children biologically and were unable to after four miscarriages. Matter of fact, my the story of my last miscarriage was kind of the catalyst for pushing us into adoption, which has been really a beautiful experience. It has
Mm.
given us exactly the family that we had always wanted. Just the journey getting there was different than we'd expected.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about life is that just because things change doesn't mean that they're not going to turn out the way you need. Oftentimes, we don't even realize what we need.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Are you a woman of God? Do you have a religion or spirituality, or
I'm very spiritual.
you
Yes,
are?
very.
Okay.
Very.
Have you found yourself closer to spirituality through your path and having to deal with some of these obstacles? Or is that
Oh,
something that you experienced through?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I found early on that dealing with chronic health is devastating. And for me, being a very spiritual person, I've been able to find a peace within myself and that I have just not, and honestly, that's new in the last couple of years.
Mm.
We were very active I was very active in church as a child, and that gave me such incredible strength to get through the difficult times, knowing that God was with me. Now, my husband and I, we've chosen to go a bit of a different path now as we're older, but God is still a very important key aspect of my own life. And I genuinely rely on my spirituality to help get me through
Wow.
these moments for sure.
That's so important. I feel like it, if I were to think about it, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it, but when we're faced with certain obstacles or certain things come our way, there is this like almost want to give up because you want to question like, well, why would God do this? Why would
hmm
this happen to me? You
hmm
know, and then it's always you kind of think of those ideas when people are like, oh, everything happens for a reason, and you kind of just want to ask like, why would you think this happened for a reason? Why? What would be the
Right.
reason for me to feel sick or to feel ill or for, be in danger? And I always love stories like yours where you can hear somebody so faithful that they don't waver and kind of really do truly believe that kind of what you mentioned earlier, what had made me ask this question, but you had said, you know, you were given what you needed that you didn't know you
Right,
needed.
right. I love that. A lot of times I would hear, This is happening for a reason. And to be quite frank, when you are in it, that is the last thing you want to hear, because it, as a matter of fact, hearing that statement made me question my relationship with God. It was painful to imagine that a God that loves me would make me suffer so deeply. But what I have come to learn and understand about life in general is that we have two choices. We are going to experience a specific event in one of two ways, and that's based on how we view it. Whether we choose to look at it as an opportunity for growth and for transformation, or whether we choose to look at it as the devastation that it can feel like in the moment.
Yeah.
And as a mother, one of the things I'm really trying to teach my children is that you are not your emotions. And when you are able to connect with this idea of not being your emotions, things feel so much less devastating. You don't question as much, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And you begin to see things kind of for what they are, and looking at it from, life is very gray, don't get me wrong. But in those moments, it makes things a bit more black and white. Like, okay, I've got to walk through this. I'm going to experience this emotion. I'm going to realize it's not me. And then we're going to move forward.
This is so wild. Just the coincidence or the serendipity of the conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
I yesterday kind of was going on this rant, and there was two of them. One was about the choice, that choice that we choose to be happy. Although things face us, we face things. There's obstacles that come our way, but when we're in a certain situation, let's take smaller ones of being in traffic. Okay, you're in traffic. You're going to be in traffic no matter what. You can choose to take different roads, of course, and that's you making a choice. But if you're in traffic, that's not being upset about it, saying words, saying things, being mad at your children or your spouse or whoever, being mad at the drivers who are also stuck in traffic. But that doesn't get you anywhere,
Right.
You're just... But you could choose to be happy. You could choose to learn something. And I was saying you could probably learn a whole different language while in traffic, And so it's that choice that you make when in a weird situation, similar of like, oh, I got to do chores. You could be upset about doing chores, or you can just make it a game and make it fun, And so I was talking about that choice can be provided, if you think about it, if you take the attitude and face your situation, say, okay, well, I'm going to go through this no matter what. How am I going to go about it?
Right.
Am I going to take what I'm learning and maybe help out other people, or am I going to complain about it? And it's not to say, especially with when you're facing an illness and it can be so, devastating. I want to talk about how it was for you on like a daily basis, because I don't know what it's like, and I'd love to hear what it is that you had to.
So my biggest issue that I deal with as a result of lupus is chronic pain. And I say it's my biggest issue because on a day-to-day basis, it's what makes it harder. It's the hardest part of being me, being a mom, being human. Maintaining my cool is this chronic pain that I deal with, and it's 24/7 all the time. So I have days that we refer to as good days or rough days or unwell days. And on the good days, I make the very best of it. We are spending every moment we can doing activities and enjoying one another. And on the rough days, my kids are, well, I hate to use the word trained, excuse me, but they are trained, and they understand that on some days when I get home from school, mom still isn't going to be able to be up with us, but I am always present. We always make sure that we have, and this seems so minimal to like a normal family or a typical family, but we always make sure that we have a sectional, because even when I'm not feeling my best, it allows me to kind of lay down and leave space for our family. And that's really important to me, that even when I'm not well, I'm still present, because I can still be part of the conversation. We've even learned how to do activities where mom's still up here. We just push the board game over to the edge of the couch. You learn how to adapt. And my kids are really great about it. And I think the reason they're great about it is because on the days when I can, they get 110% of me. And I'm a good mom. I'm really proud to be able to say that my kids get to have an amazing mom, despite the fact that I have these struggles. And, someone told me when my daughter was young, that the hard moments in life are opportunities to teach our children about the reality of
Mm,
life.
I love that.
And what better way than to be in that moment with them, to understand what you're going through and to teach them. And I've
Yeah.
always tried to hold that perspective. And since that conversation, I've looked at every moment differently, because every moment truly is teachable. And I see this compassion and empathy that's building in my children that I am just so deeply, deeply
Wow.
proud of. And I can't help but wonder if it would be that way if they weren't watching their own mother
Mm.
struggle, you know?
It's hard when it's so close.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think the biggest struggle that I have would be the pain. Um, on the most difficult days, I have found ways to still push. I have a rule called the 1 a day rule. I made it up with myself just to like force myself to do something, because when I wake up, I feel terrible. And until I get meds and get going, it really is miserable. But so I have a rule that unless I am like so sick that I need to be in the hospital, the rule is I get up, I get the kids off to school, then I'll rest for a bit, and then the rule is I get myself ready and I do 1 a day. So for me, typically that looks like either dishes or make the bed. And then once I complete that one task, then I ask myself, do I have it in me to do another?
Mm.
Or do I need to stop? And I have learned to not judge myself, because all it does is make me sicker. So on the days when I need to stop and it's just one for that day, it's just one for that day. On the days when I end up being able to do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things or a huge project, I pat myself on the back, say, great job, you did it, and then that's it. I also can't make a big deal about those days, because then I feel bad on the days I can't. So
Yeah.
a lot of it for me has been learning how to love myself unconditionally.
I love that so much. And it's so hard not to compare ourselves to other people, but I think it's important to
Right,
look within and say, I can't compare myself to the yesterday me or
right.
the one a year ago, because today you are a different person. You're going to feel differently. I think we treat success in the same way. We're like, okay, this has got to be the outcome. Yet sometimes we're out of control of the outcome. If we think we're going to get somewhere and there's traffic, we're not going to get there. Even if you put everything into packing if you're going to the beach, if you packed everything, got everybody ready, and you're out the door and you still don't get there in time,
Yeah.
you did your best. You did everything at your best ability and you had the best intention. If you have the best intention and you put in the best input, that is success. And some days it's doing the one activity, and on other days it's doing the 7 activities.
Right.
But being able to let go. Oh, that's something that I was gonna mention. Earlier, you talked about emotions and
Mm-hmm.
not attaching yourself to your emotions. This is something
Mm-hmm.
that I'm personally working on, and this is the another serendipitous moment of. Um, I tend to attach myself to my emotions, and now I've recently learned that I absorb other people's emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an empath thing. Other people's it, but then I carry them, and then I think, oh my gosh, I'm so like sad and down, and this is gonna work. And then the next day, I'll kind of reflect, like, that's not me. That wasn't me. I absorb other people's feelings, and then I pass it. I pass through that lens. So then I view the event or how that day went through that lens versus that's not at all who I am, or the decision I would have made is just I let this, if we're talking spirituality, kind of like angels or demons, we let other
Mm-hmm.
demons
Mm-hmm.
kind of tell us what to do and direct and tell us what's going on, and we listen because we think it's our inner voice. Yet it's could be somebody else's inner voice, could be other people's emotions kind of in your
Mm-hmm.
ear and dictating things that we do. But that's something that I'm working on, is making sure I almost ask myself the question of like, okay, well, who's doing that inner voice? Is that
Mm-hmm.
me talking, or is that because somebody came over, they were in a bad mood, and I'm also kind of feeling bad that they were feeling bad, so now I'm feeling bad, but now they're feeling better because it almost like I absorbed the thing from them, and then now they're healed and they're moving on, but now I'm slumped and I'm waiting for
I've
somebody
been
else to
there.
take it.
I
It's
have been there.
strange. It's
It is a
strange how that
very strange thing to
happens.
experience. It's also very strange to try to explain it to others. I think you did pretty well.
Oh,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
have so been there. And really, over the course of the pandemic,
Mm,
I, of course, with my health, we had to seriously isolate. Like the
mm,
kids did homeschool even when we went back to school in our district, and they were at home for almost a year.
mm,
And actually, they were at home for longer than a year. But during that time, I wasn't able to interact with as many people, and it shut out everyone else's emotions. And I found myself amidst a very deep spiritual awakening and
Mm,
serious healing that happened,
wow.
which is why I'm able to be here now and talking openly about the things I've struggled with. For many years, I hid them. I was so deeply ashamed of being unwell. I don't even know how to explain it to you, because now when I look at it, it seems so ridiculous to
Yeah.
even me. But I was so ashamed of being unwell. I was so ashamed of not being able to work full time. I deeply grieved leaving my profession and not having a very prestigious career, things that all these things I wanted for myself as a really strong, positive female. And I just have really found this newfound um, passion for not only embracing who I am and where I am, but like reaching and finding and meeting other people. In particular, it tends to be women, where they're at in these moments as
Mm,
well. And so that, I'm doing speaking. I'm branding myself as a mindset mentor and
mm,
motivational speaker, because that is exactly where I know I belong. And to be
yeah.
frank, I also think that's why I have had the experiences I've had, because I think I have the heart to connect. I have a tender heart that can connect really easily with others.
Mm,
And, I'm not going to let these experiences be, I'm not going to let the story, the narrative be negative. That's
wow.
just not who I am. So instead, I'm using these bits of my story that feel overwhelming and have felt, devastating. And instead, I am going to build my legacy off of them. I'm going
Yeah.
to I'm going to build everything from here forward is going to be about proving that we can overcome these things.
I think that's so beautiful. I love we're constantly faced with a choice of like faith or fear. You're going to either have faith that it's going to
Right.
work out, or you're fearful that it's not going to work out. And then when it
Right.
comes to a situation like the pandemic, where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be locked in at home with, my whole family, and
Mhm.
I'm ill and this, you could, and a lot of people have, paint this picture of how terrible it was. And it sounds like what you did is like we talked about earlier, you chose to be happy, to say, you know what, this is a great time for me to sit and be with myself. I think we're all scared to do
Mhm.
that because we'll find what's wrong with us. It's easy to point out everyone
I
else's
did. Yeah.
problems.
Mhm.
And then when you're almost forced, it's like God says, you know what? You just need to spend some time with yourself. And we get to look within and say, oh my gosh, maybe I've been given this because God thinks that I am so strong, not only to carry it, deal with it, but also
Mhm.
help others. Like
Right.
that is your way of, and I just love how you you deliberately thought it through to say, this is my path and I believe
Mhm.
in it.
Mhm. I do believe that the things that we experience, I I have learned that in working with others over the course of my life, that your greatest tragedy is usually also your greatest strength. And I just feel like there is such, when you think about suffering, suffering for me is what drives me to want to connect with others and help coach them their mindset, because suffering is such a, like, there are just no words. And I have been so deep in the suffering for so long that not only the idea of myself suffering any further is just deeply devastating, but the idea of anyone, I don't have to know you. I cannot bear the idea of other moms, women, men out there that are deep in that suffering. And I think we need to be more open about the experiences that we're having in life. We
Yeah.
oftentimes hide these difficult parts of our lives. And the reality is, we're all pretty much having very typical experiences as others. But
Yeah.
we wouldn't know that because we don't open up unless it's to share the great things that are happening in our life.
Yeah. I think it's almost like an illness in today's world where that comparison, that constant comparison
Yeah.
to others, and then with social media,
Oh,
it's in our faces constantly, and then we see somebody, it's like, oh, they are getting all these likes, and oh, I don't have that table in my living room, or I don't have that hair, or I don't, whatever it is, and we
yeah.
compare ourselves. And through that, we're constantly trying to become this other illusion or
Mm-hmm.
this other person, and we can't be that other person. We're just not them. But instead of
Right.
embracing who we truly are and teaching people of what we know, because it could be so many things. If you're really good at like calligraphy, and for some
Sure.
people it's just like, oh, it's just writing, but like people can watch that all day, and you can go through the letters and how you would do it and share your secrets and how do you work, and then find your own group of people who find that fun as well. But it's looking within and finding what you like instead of trying to recreate this other stuff. And we're all kind of really stuck in it, and I'm there as well, where I'm just coming to this place where I'm like, I just gotta be myself. What am I trying to do all this stuff for? Like, if it's scared of what my friends will think, well, my friends know me. They'll see me for actually who I am instead of trying to be someone else.
I
Same with
love that.
family, same with, and people who don't know me, that's the me that they'll experience. But this is like, why am I worried about this or that? If I'm just being myself, that's just who I am. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and if they say something rude, like, well, but literally, so what?
I know. And I have literally spent my entire life worried about what everyone thought of me. I was not a cool kid. I was bullied. I felt very unsure of who I was as a person. And I honestly think it led to a lot of trauma that ended up leading me down the path of worrying so much about what others.
Mm,
But the point, what I'm trying to get at is I have let that and fear guide my entire life.
yeah.
And I just can't live that anymore. I can't. Furthermore, I absolutely will not model that for my children.
Mm,
So my kids know that it is my dream to be speaking to large groups. They know it is my dream to mentor others. And my kids, they make me feel pretty awesome. They tell me I'm amazing. Your kids love you unconditionally. So, but I absolutely cannot sit around and let this be the narrative. We get a
yeah.
pick. And I think that is kind of what I think that might be the definition of being healed, is when you recognize that you are in charge of your own narrative. The story might be the same, but how you and others perceive it is kind of up to you.
Yeah.
So I'm done caring what others think. I'm
I
done
love it.
fearing it. I'm just done.
Yeah, it's so silly because when you come to this realization, not that what has happened seems like a waste of time, but it just seems like, oh my gosh, I was in a cave this whole time, really scared to come out of this cave, and I thought, hey, this one rock and fire is really cool in this cave, and that's just because I'm scared to go outside. What's out there? And then you go out, and it's this whole beautiful forest that you can explore of other things that if you're not scared to get out of the cave, you can go and see so much. But like that fear kind of keeps us in, like, don't get out of the cave,
Oh,
don't get out of the cave. What if so and so says this? What if so and so says this? And I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's the bullying in the childhood. I went through a similar thing where
yeah.
it just makes your self-esteem. And I talked about it this morning where I'm like, if we can raise kids, which is what I love what you're doing with yours, to showing that an example of a choice that you can make. If
Mm-hmm.
we can, that's the best thing that we can do for our kids, is raise them without any voids having to fill, without having to seek any validation. If they are sure and confident,
Mm-hmm.
they can achieve anything. Sometimes I think back, I'm like, if I haven't been spending all this time unlearning things on what not to do and how to find this confidence within myself, I would be so much further ahead, because my
I
head
know.
isn't triple overthinking of what people might think. Or me being a perfectionist, I recently found out, is it's not that you like things perfect, it's you want things to appear to be perfect
Oh,
so that people don't know what you're actually hiding, which it doesn't have to be anything. You just feel like something's wrong with you. You feel you're not enough. You feel you're not this, so you try to overcome it by being a perfectionist. That's what I do. And that hit me like a rock. I'm like, why am I so dang terrified of what people are gonna say? Like, it's so instilled in us where we think that's the, like, we must abide by making sure other people like you. Yet when you can actually step out and breathe, like, you can like roll your shoulders
mm-hmm.
back and be like, oh, okay, I can just be myself. Like,
Right. Absolutely. And when we are not taught to build our own self-worth on ourselves, like, you're worthy just because you're a human, not for
yes,
anything that you can do. It is about you just being human. You are worthy as is. And when you do not build a world around self-love, you start seeking validation in others, which is what I think we've done. Our generation and before us, these
Yeah.
younger kids are a different breed. But
Yeah.
I really feel like it's that lack of self love that has led us to be so obsessed with appearing a certain way and being
Mm-hmm.
willing to actually abandon our own sense of self in order to seek that
Yeah.
validation. So,
It's
mm,
it's odd, and I think it comes from parenting, to making sure you instill in your child that you are enough. What you choose to do matters. You matter. You are important. So when they are faced, I hear these comments all the time from moms, kids, they'll come to a point where, let's say, they went to school and they wanted to be a writer, and then some teacher says, "You're not a good writer," and they stop writing
yeah,
because one person said so, and we believe it. Oh, well, so and so didn't approve. Now we give up on it.
right,
And it happens all the time where, if you are sure, if somebody says, "Hey, you're not a good writer," if you can say, "Well, that's your opinion, but I think I am, and I'm going to continue doing it." And then there's
right,
those stories of like, "Hey, in face of everything, I still said, you know what, I'm going to keep going because I believe in myself.
right,
I know this matters. I know I'm good at it, even if you don't see it." And as we see in like artists and stuff, where like no one believed in their art, nobody would
right,
buy their stuff until somebody else decides that it works. Almost like money. I feel like at one point money wasn't a thing, and then someone's like, "Let's decide it works." Then everyone
right,
believes in it
right,
finally.
right,
And that's how we are with ourselves. We're like, as long as somebody approves of me, then I matter. But then as soon as somebody doesn't like us, then it almost like we feel like we don't matter. But we matter. We matter in like our
right,
full form, without having to abide to any of the things of the car you drive or what job you have. Because people are like, "Oh, I don't want to be a custodian. I don't want to be flipping burgers." But what if you do want to be flipping burgers? What if you
yeah,
absolutely love it? What if you want to be a custodian because your kids go to school and you just want to be close with them? It's not a
yeah,
shitty job. It's just a job. What matters is how do you spend your time with your loved ones?
mm-hmm,
How are you serving to others? What do you
mm-hmm,
share? People want to see that. And like when I think about, talking about others, I always want to support their job or career or dreams or passion. And then when I look within myself, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know." And that's what I'm tired of. Like you, I just want to be not questioning myself anymore. I want to go
right.
forward. And I love that you're teaching that to your kids, saying,
Thank
against
you.
all of these other things, this is what I'm going to do. And not only are you setting that example for them, you're setting it for others, because everyone who knows your kids, now you're going to be speaking publicly about it and all of that. Like,
Right.
it's just spreading like fire of this
Mm-hmm.
motivation and this excitement of like, you got to believe in who you truly are.
Right. Yeah, yes, 100%. My parents did an incredible job of instilling those things in me. And I think it's life that kind of, some things that happened in life, I just kind of beat it out of me. But now that I've kind of done this healing, those bits that they taught me, that foundation, are, I really feel like that's where a lot of this has come from. My parents did a great job at telling me I could do whatever I wanted to do, and
Mm,
that I was important and I was loved, and they did an amazing job at all of those things. And yet I still, somewhere along the line, felt discouraged and broken from the world. So I think maybe I've wondered a lot about this, and part of me wonders if I lacked this resilience maybe that a typical kid might have. I'm not sure. I've also really wondered if it truly could have been the bullying that just kind of, because I really struggled with this for a while, and it made middle school rough. And I feel like after middle school I was just a different person, you
mm,
know.
yeah.
But anyway,
There's,
we're here today,
there's,
and
but there's something to it. The bullying itself is a whole separate conversation.
mm-hmm,
I think some people, especially from the generation before us, were like, "Oh, bullying is good. It builds character." It's like, well, on those who've chosen to cut off their feelings and no longer like be emotionally connected, which is good in some way, who are able to shut it off, yes. But what about like the sensitive ones, where we let it beat us down until we're like, "Oh, you're right. I am not important," and you
mm,
live your life that way. Like, I I want everyone to just be happy and encouraging, but I know that's not the truth. And I think a lot of people do experience the bullying part where they start questioning themselves if they're not,
mm-hmm,
if we're talking about school, there's usually some sort of a ladder. And if you're not up
mm-hmm,
there, you're kind of. And I was bullied a lot through middle school.
mm-hmm,
I really struggled. Uh, and sometimes that's why I think sometimes even today, my husband's so good about noticing it, but he's like, stop listening to the voices that you hear in your head, because I'll start questioning myself. Like, I'll have an idea and then I'll backpedal so quickly. And he's like, stop listening to those like people. And it stays with you. I don't know the right, but then, it gets us here.
At the beginning of last year, I made a promise to myself that from here forward, everything I did, I was going to do for myself at the level I would do for my loved ones. So making food for myself, the way I would make lunches for my children, drawing myself a nice bath, the way I do that for my children. And it actually started with the most basic self-care things just like that. But it created a foundation that's been able to build bigger, more relevant things in my life, like where I'm at right now. And because honestly, this time 2 years ago, if you would have told me where I'm at right now, I probably would have hidden a closet and be like, I'm going to purposely try to do everything I can to not let that happen, because it would have just been so overwhelming and terrifying, even though it's what I actually want.
Yeah. There is that, like, very small, thin line between when we have an idea, if we're scared of it because we are terrified and it's fear, or if we're excited about it, but almost the excitement of succeeding and doing well and what a difference it could make, that keeps us back because we read it in our minds as fear. And we're like, oh, I must be scared. I shouldn't do this to make sure I'm safe, I'm comfortable. And so we kind of go backwards, but it almost in our brain, it reads the same way, that excitement.
Right.
Versus, oh no, this is scary, this is fearful. And then sometimes I try to think further of like, okay, well, I'm scared of this idea. And then if you try to think one step further, like, okay, well, what happens in the worst case scenario? And you're like, oh, it doesn't go well. And then you're like, oh, and that's it?
Right. That very statement has been so freeing to me. Okay, let's go down that road. What is the worst case scenario here?
Yeah.
And I have found that very freeing.
Yeah. Something I'm trying to work on, but I forget, but I try to remember to do, instead of what if, like, what if this goes wrong? What if this, whatever, to change to so what? Okay, right. So what?
Right.
Plans change.
Right.
So what? This doesn't go well. Okay, yeah. I'm in the same boat. I get a chance to do it better. I get the chance to do it again. When we all love a chance to do something better, and this is like God, life, everyone just aligning it for you, so you do have that opportunity. Yeah, we see it as a failure. It's never a failure. It's just another step. Right. But somehow it's like in us to be like, oh, this was terrible. I need to give up. I didn't do this. To be able to overcome that and say, this is just a learning step. We're all taking tiny steps to get wherever it is that we're going. And not seeing it in the light of a failure or being fearful of it, but having, that faith of like, so what? So what? It goes wrong. Cool. Right. Now I'll learn how to do that, and then I can teach others not to make that mistake.
Right. I love that. It's a great perspective. For me, the biggest thing was if I couldn't see how I was going to get from point A to point Z, I could not do it. But I have learned to have faith that I intuitively will know how to get there along the way. I only need to get from A to B right now. And I love that. Yes. And it has been game changer for me. And it's working. I'll get to B and then I'll hang out at B. And usually I'm kind of like, okay, what next? And then all of a sudden it's like, that flicker, I intuitively get the idea for the next point. And really I don't know at what point I thought I would ever know A to Z, because that's not how life works. But somehow I just got put in this box, and it's like everything just feels overwhelming and scary to me now.
I think there's a few things in there for I think some of this to blame is the social media, because everything is so fast and we want everything right away and we want it right now and it's immediate. And so we want the results. We want the Z. We're at A and we want Z and we want it tomorrow, because we see it happening so fast. We watch a quick 30-second video and we're like, wow, that's how easy it is. And then you try to do it yourself. You're just like, That's not how it looked on
Right.
that video. Same with
Right.
like Amazon. You need something, you can have it tomorrow. You can have it tonight. You can have your groceries to you. You can have everything to you so fast, and we almost get annoyed. You touch somebody and they don't respond, and you're just like, it's
Right.
been 5 minutes, and the other,
Right.
it's 5 minutes. Somebody, you can do so many things in 5 minutes. But I think the social media aspect has really changed our patience, where we lack it.
Yes,
We want
I
it right
agree.
now. We want it today. We want it tomorrow. We want it just like right now, and we get frustrated when it doesn't happen. But then when you think about businesses that took a long time to start, they take 10 years, that usually don't succeed or don't start making profit for the first 3 years of a business. So this is like, if you yourself are a business, if you treat yourself as a business, okay, you have a 90-day period of a change. If you just started working there, they usually give you 90-day grace of like figuring things out, messing things up. And this already is an adult, so every day we're kind of figuring ourselves out, and we should give a little leniency and a little grace there. But it's hard when we see it in our faces every day with social media, and you're like, but that person's already doing it faster, and they've already done this, or they've already done that, and we start comparing. And to shut it off, to just get out of that comparison.
Yeah. One of the most amazing lessons that I've learned being chronically ill is that I have to pace myself. And I'm so grateful for that gift. There have been great things that have come out of being unwell. I've learned some beautiful lessons. And that's one of them, because I am when I started deciding to be out there, I had to really be cautious on what I put into this stuff versus my family versus my health. And it's very easy, as you're saying, with social media to want to just, for me, being a very type A, I'm going to succeed no matter what kind of person, to just want to drive it hard until it happens. And if I weren't unwell, I probably would, but I have to find a way to stop, and I have to pace myself, because if I don't, I'm going to pay for it, which means my family's going to pay for it. But you are very much right. I notice that when I'm on social media, especially pre-pandemic, because I very much cut myself down during the pandemic. That was part of my journey.
Where'd Stacie go? Stacie, where'd you go? Hi, everybody. Stacie just disappeared from my screen. Let's see if she'll come back. Thank you, everybody, sticking around. I'll wait another minute to see if we can bring her back. I want to say Stacie, but she's not even connected. Man. Let's see if she comes back, guys. I hope so. If not, we might just need to say goodbye. Sorry for keeping everyone on. Oh, here we go.
Ben.
I don't know. You got disconnected. You just left.
Yeah, it just it went down. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. I'm glad we waited.
Okay.
Sorry that it happened, but
Oh no, I am so sorry. Let's see, where was I at?
you're talking about how you stopped the social media before the pandemic.
Yes, and I just really found that once I stopped watching the national news and my local news, and I stopped reading constantly, reading news type things,
Yeah.
and I stopped. And I still hop on social media and I still utilize it, but I'm very cautious in who and what I really dig into. And I have found a world of difference in that. So my daughter, who's 11, and she gets really upset with us because we don't allow her to have any social media where she could be taking on other people's energies, or that she could be able to be reached. We're very, very cautious with that, and she doesn't like that, because most of her friends do have it. But
it'd be hard to explain to a kid about letting others suck up your energy.
Right.
When they're like, but mom, it's just fun. It's just fun. It's just videos. It's just fun. It's such a bigger topic of, you only have this bucket full of energy, of attention span that you're able to spend during the day. And if you pour it out a little here and pour it out a little here and you pour it out a little here, by the end of the day, your bucket's full. And then you kind of, if you don't get enough time to refill your bucket, if you don't do enough to refill your own bucket, you'll start half empty, maybe even empty tomorrow. And it's going to affect you. And this is something I struggled when I was little, where I was like, Mom, I just want to go to sleepover. It's so fun. But she knew I'd get so drained. And she'd be like, no, you get drained. I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? No, I don't. And she, of course, knew. But it's hard for a kid to comprehend. So I can imagine how hard it is for her to just, no, Mom, you don't get it, is what she's saying. Where I'm sure you want to be like, no, you don't get it.
Right. And the reality is, I know that I cannot get that through her head. I realize at this point in life that my own parents couldn't get it through mine. And it took becoming an adult and beginning to understand those things before I did. So I just, I say, I understand you're angry, and there's not much more I can do to make you not angry. Just know that stand is not going to change at this point anytime soon. Eventually we'll have to, because we will want to help her
navigate it and learn what to avoid
and learn how to moderate that. And
it's hard right now. I mean, it's wild, wild west on the internet and on the apps. It's so wild how quickly we opened up our doors in our homes and our bedrooms for strangers. And even now, recording right now, going live, streaming in front of strangers. We're welcoming people into our lives, and we're adults, but kids have that opportunity as well. And not knowing what strangers might be saying to them, what manipulation skills they might be using, I mean, it's just, I don't even want to tell, it's just wild out there how unsecure it is, I know our parents were worried about, like, hey, lock the door, lock the garage, how, you know. Now this is people getting into something in our pocket and gaining trust and gaining all sorts of information. Granted, a lot of our information we do post publicly as well. If somebody had to go through our profile, they could tell you your routine probably.
Right. And it is terrifying. You're absolutely right. We also, I guess we are pretty careful in general. We don't allow sleepovers, and our kids are really at the point where they understand that. Our son has some trauma. We adopted him when he moved in with us when he was 3, and he was a little bit older when his adoption was final, but for the sake of things, he's been with us since he was 3. But even at that young age, he has already, trauma is so, we are so trained and so experienced now with trauma in our family, him as well as my daughter, that they almost don't argue anymore. They've come to understand that these things can imprint on our brain and change who we are and change what our life experience is. So I don't want to say lucky. I'm grateful that they have been as open-minded and have learned so much from all of that education.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was just going to mention, it sounds like they have found peace. And I think that's what we all kind of need to focus on, finding peace to be ourselves, peace to be, if something goes wrong is okay. But to hear that your kids are comprehending the fact that this is how things are, and they are okay with it because they understand it on a deeper level, like they are at peace with it, instead of having to fight, instead of trying to be stubborn against it or have any resentment or envy, to find peace in something like that. I mean, that's just way ahead of its time.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, we are not without the difficult moments, and it took a while getting there, and it still gets, in particular with our daughter, if there's something going on where there's multiple friends going and she's kind of like not one that gets to go or whatnot, it's a little different. But, I'm also finding that there are quite a few parents like that, like us out there. Now, I will say, I do not judge any other parent on how they choose to parent their children, truly. But I am actually still really shocked at the number of kids that still do a lot of overnights. It always surprises me. But, before I quit working and before we had children, I worked with juvenile offenders,
Mm,
and I've worked with youth for many, many years, in a capacity in which I've seen a lot. So I try to remind myself that not everybody has seen the things I've seen or understands things the way that my husband and I understand them.
yeah.
So,
It's difficult to sometimes have that mindset because we are so used to thinking with our own brain and our own experiences what we know.
right,
Sometimes I tend to assume that the other person should know those things too, and that should be common sense, and that should be, and then you learn the other person hasn't lived those experiences, haven't seen that, really doesn't know how to feel about or how to regulate a certain emotion. It, I think I tend to be a little stubborn towards it sometimes. I'm like, how do you not get that? And then to
right,
remember, hey, we're all have traveled different paths and haven't seen.
right.
I mean, once you start like awakening, realizing, kind of seeing things in a bigger perspective, it's almost kind of hard to be like, wow, I used to think that minuscule thing and really attach myself to it, versus now kind of seeing things in a bigger spectrum.
Isn't that incredible? I'm continually surprised by that as well. And yet, I know that there's something that I'm attaching myself to now that in a decade I'll be shocked by.
Yeah,
But that is the reality of what it means to grow and transform.
I think that along with gratitude, where I think 5 years ago we would dream of this moment, and now we're
Exactly.
here and we're thinking what's in another 5 years, instead of just saying, oh my gosh, I got here, this is where I can't believe 5 years ago I was thinking this, but holy cannoli, here I am now. And
Oh,
to like be grateful, because in 5 years, oh my gosh, I don't know where we're gonna be.
I
But
know.
I know when we get there, we're going to be like, oh, in 5 more years. Like, no, let's talk about today. Oh my gosh, where are you today? You have the home you've dreamed of. You have the family you wanted. You have people who love you around you. You have this delicious food. You used to dream about this because your parents only made rice, and now you get to have this like fish or whatever you like. Now we've dreamed of these moments, yet now here we're like, it's so mundane. I get to have dinner, whatever. And you're like, you used to dream
Oh,
about this. You used to eat sandwiches for like $1. Now look at you. And we're so forgetful. We just forget things. We're just like, oh, I'll have this reminder, this epiphany, and then I'll forget. I'll forget I was thinking about this. I'll forget that I used to like pray for these moments, and now I'm here, but I'm so caught up on this other new thing. And it's the trauma, the ADHD, the social media, the quickness of things. We just, whatever anyone's experiencing, it's just now so elevated, so quick, that we don't have the patience to sit down and say, holy crap, I made it. Like, I
yeah.
can't believe where I'm sitting right now. This is,
I recently had a similar discussion with our daughter. I've just been trying to introduce to her this thought process that your perspective is always relevant to what you have most recently experienced. So, for that reason, certain things, like that's why in the now we forget to be grateful because it's been a recent experience. And
yeah.
so you're always comparing against it's always relevant to your most recent experience. So I was trying to explain that to her, and I actually brought up, I said, when on my hands and knees in tears, I begged God for you. I begged him for you. And now I got to make your, I'm just kidding. I love teasing her, and I have an interesting sense of humor, uh, and I was like, now I got to make your meal every morning and do this for you and do that for you.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm only joking, but it is very true. It is
Yeah.
very, very true.
I often try to remember that, you know, if you think about the last song you played in your car before you get out, that's the song you kind of tend to like keep singing throughout the day. You kind of almost take the tone of it in the mood, and if it was sad and it brought up these sad emotions, you carry that into now entering your home. But if you're listening to like a happy, uplifting song, you kind of go in with that. And so when I try to, because I attach myself to the emotions in the current situation, I'm like, oh, now everything sucks, and now this and this, just because one tiny little thing happened. And if
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, I attach myself to it.
Yeah.
But then I try to remember, like, I need to detach myself from that, because that's not the whole truth. This is just how I'm feeling right now, because my feelings got hurt. I felt not important. I felt unseen. I didn't feel validated. But I attached that that's now my life. It's like, no, it's just what just happened. It's just you listened to a bad song before you got out of the car, but
Right.
that's not who you are. You have all of these different songs.
That's interesting.
But I guess that's also to like, I guess kind of keep in mind of what music we listen to. Um,
We truly are. You know, one of the things that I really talk a lot about on my platforms is truly about the fact that you can reprogram your subconscious. You know, with the reticular activating system, which is part of the brainstem, it is basically like the projector. It decides on what movie gets played in the brain, in your mind every day. And the reticular activating system, 80% of it is exactly what it played the day before. So actually changing your mindset, only 20% of it is new, 80% of it is what happened the day before.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So but there is true science out there about reprogramming your subconscious and being able to change your mindset. But it really speaks to why it is so difficult for people to truly break out of.
Oh my gosh. Because you're watching the one from yesterday still. Sometimes I feel I'm like,
80% of it is yesterday's.
yeah, you're just watching the rerun. Oh my,
Yeah,
this makes so much sense to me because
right.
sometimes, like, by 5, 6 o'clock, I'll have these epiphanies where I'm like, I have a breakthrough within myself where I'm like, oh my gosh, this just clicked. This just made sense to me. And then I'll wake up and I kind of carry on with my day almost as it was the day before, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is this stuff. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. I was going to change this and that. And I just kind of went back into the routine. It's like the Truman Show where you just kind of go back into the stuff.
Yeah, your mindset is very much that of
Man.
yesterday and the day before and the day before. But again, you know, if people want to become very intentional and mindful about what they watch, and it really does take looking at every way that you take in information, you can really change that. And because, you know, to be fair, mine happened because of the pandemic. So I had it was a little easier for me in some regards. And in others, you could say it was maybe more difficult. But that's really what happened was it started, I noticed bits of me changing. I started feeling happier and I started thinking, what is this about? And then I really started to dig in and do the research and came to understand it. And that's when I became very intentional about truly changing my entire mindset on life in general. And I've learned, and even in that, amidst that, a lot of my thoughts on parenting even changed. My thoughts on religion changed. I became very different, and some of it I look back on, and at times I feel sad that I lived my whole life up until then feeling a certain way. But then I just remember, okay, well, that was just the first 40 years. I get to do the next 40 my way, you know,
Yeah.
because a lot of us are still running on the programming that was given to us in childhood.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, you know, they say the voice of your critical parent, the more critical parent is typically your inner voice. So when you think of your inner voice and you think of your more critical parent, they typically sound the same. And
Yeah.
when I say that to people, they'll sit and they'll think about it for a minute and they'll be like,
You can almost hear
yes,
it. You almost hear the
yes,
actual voice
right,
in
right.
the tone. Yeah, it's so. I recently learned that, and it has explained a lot of grudges I hold against that parent. Because then I'm like, man, I'm not talking to myself this way. I'm hearing this other person talk to me that way.
Hmm.
And then it kind of it's changed my way of parenting as to why I want to make sure that's not my daughter's inner voice. I want
Sure.
to make sure she has a different inner voice,
Hmm.
and she feels encouraged and supported in whatever way she needs to. uh, it's
That's
the mind
incredible
is
that you're doing that.
silly. It comes from the personal trauma, comes from the other stuff, so it's kind of like, man, why was this handed? Why did anyone let this happen to me as a child? And then sometimes I think of like, okay, so this is my story, so I'm the main character, you know? And then when you have children, you start living almost for them. You're like, maybe all of this happened so I could help you, whether it's teaching you or helping your loved ones or your generation, you know, for me to pass on this knowledge and
Right.
help you. You start living for that other person. and kind of realize that like the story moves on and now you become the background character, they become main character, and you're kind of there to help them along now. Something I was thinking of, if we're talking about still like main character and all of that, if you, instead of being an actor of your life, you need to start becoming like a writer and director of your life.
I love that.
Well, I've
not heard that.
I used to act in LA, and something that has helped me make my transition was, as an actor, you're always told what to do. You're given direction, you're given what you're going to say, and then you deliver on that part. And so then I kind of wanted to do my own ideas. I wanted to have my own voice. And now that I'm thinking about it, like literally right now, I'm like, oh, I wanted to become my own writer. I wanted to become my own director. I wanted to be able to tell myself how this show is going to run, of my show, of my movie, and I'm going to write it in my voice instead of letting someone else do it. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's what I need to be doing, instead of listening to others, letting them dictate my life, asking others for opinion, because they're going to pass on their trauma, their insecurities, their fear onto my idea. But that's not who I am. That's not what I need to be doing. I need to write my own story. I need to star in it and direct it and do it my way to show other people what I have to offer, instead of taking in all this other stuff and taking other direction and being, again, just an actor in a whole other movie. Like, I need this to be my voice.
I love that. For that reason, I have stopped asking the people close to me for their advice on things related to, in particular, this journey. My husband tends to be a little more negative. My best friend is super duper positive. And so I just have decided, although I probably still run more by her, but I do try hard to not, because I really believe in intuition. I believe intuition is a gift that allows us to protect ourselves and to guide us into our happiest future.
Yeah.
And so I really try to just listen to me.
You know,
and doing that takes cutting out a lot of the extra noise.
So we're talking about the inner voice, that intuition should be our inner voice. That should be what we're listening to. And that's what we should be aligned, instead of trying to focus on pleasing other people, doing all of this stuff. We should be listening to our intuition as our inner voice to be able to pursue and align ourselves with exactly the decision that's laid out for us, instead of questioning it or trusting others to know better for us, which isn't the case. Plus, sometimes somebody could say, this is so great, and it's not really that great, or this is so bad, and it's not bad at all. But like, you made it, you know what went into it, you know if you put in the best work or not. But we give it to other people. We just give away our value by saying, what do you think about it? What do you think about it? It's like, shoot, what do you think about it? Like, you did it. What do you think about it? If you think it's great, let's keep going on it. Let's do this.
And as a mother, you have probably intuitively said that when your kids have said, because I find myself doing that. Mom, what do you think about this? Wait, I want to know what you think about it.
Yeah.
And then I will share with them, because I think that's part of the learning. But I always make sure to hear, especially my daughter, her voice first, because she can tend to be a bit quiet, both literally and metaphorically. Have you read, do you like to read?
I do like to read.
Have you read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle?
I haven't, but I do.
Or
have
Untethered Soul, even.
Who's that one by?
Oh gosh, I should know this, and I'm just blanking. I'll look at it when I'm done and let you know.
Okay, because I want to say I did, but maybe I'm mixing up the title. But either way, I should reread it if I can't think of it. So.
Well, especially The Power of Now. It's written. I had to reread it a bit at first, because I just had a hard time wrapping my brain around the concept of me not being my mind, not being my thoughts. But really, it talks about all of those things, how to detach and how to reprogram. I would encourage you to read it. I think it would, based on things you're telling me, I think it would really resonate with you right now.
I'm excited. I'm going to do that tonight.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think
okay.
I would. It's really fascinating.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Because I feel like today I got on and I kind of went on a few rants, but they felt like they were running through me. I feel like things were just kind of supposed to occur.
Yeah.
So I feel like this book is supposed to...
Interesting.
Interesting. I'm intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
Stacie, I have to let you go and
Okay.
go give dinner to my daughter, my baby girl.
Mm-hmm.
But I had an amazing time talking to you. I'm very
Me
proud of
too.
you. The way you speak
Aw.
about yourself, what you've had to overcome, what you've done for your family, what you do
Mhm.
for others, and now you're willing to open up, be vulnerable, to share all of those experiences and what you've learned with others. I mean, that's so much giving. And especially when you're chronically ill, I mean, that takes more
Yeah.
out of you. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it my way.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I think that's absolutely amazing. Where I know you said you're on this journey of talking to people and spreading this truth, and so where can people find you? Where should they tune in? What's your next
Mm-hmm.
thing?
Thank you. So I'm on TikTok, on Facebook, and on Instagram as Unstoppable Stacie. Stacie is with an IE, so STACIE all together. And my website will be the same and up running in about a month.
Perfect. Sorry, you went out for a second volume wise. So what was the website?
Okay. It's the website will be out in about a month, but it will be the same. It'll be Unstoppable Stacie with an IE.com.
Perfect. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm
Thank
excited about
you.
your journey. I'm gonna go follow you on TikTok if I don't follow you already. I don't
Awesome.
think I do.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this
Thank you.
conversation and taking your time. I feel like
Yeah.
I was mentally stimulated where I'm like, things have opened up today. And
I
that
love
happens with a
that.
lot, but things have opened up. So I
I
thank you for
love
that. And I
that.
thank you for your time. I hope
All
you have a
right.
good night with your family. And I look forward
Too.
to following you. And then if you ever want to hop on again and talk about, where you're at, do kind of like how far have you come? We'll talk about the show you just did in front of 10,000 people. Then I'd love to
Yes.
have you back
I would
on.
love that. I would love
Okay.
that.
That sounds
Thank you,
good.
dear. It was so nice to meet you meet you.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you too. This is what we're getting used to.
Yeah.
All right,
All
Stacie.
right.
Thank
Take
you
care.
again.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time at Mom Your Own Way. Bye.